One more, and we're gonna bring it to extra lengthened loading on this. It's gonna get extra hard, extra nasty, right in the spot. It's gonna be the hardest for us, but it's gonna take it off of where we're gonna have the most difficulty in the shortened position anyway. Taking the most advantage of an additional set, so it's not equally as detrimental to what we're gonna be doing later. It's gonna be more targeted to exactly what we're trying to get out of the adductor movement anyways. Shortened loading for the adductor isn't all that helpful for really growing adductor tissue all that much. Controlling the range is gonna be helpful, but that's not exactly the goal this final set. We wanna get as much work out of it as possible. Oh. Yeah. Oh. Yeah. All right, so third set, last set on adductor. The first two, and obviously almost any adductor machine, prime is real special because we can really change where it's gonna be loading, but pretty much regardless of how you're gonna load it, you're gonna fail in the shortened position the fastest, and regardless of anything else, almost every time. That's obviously the end point of the range. You're always going to fail in the end point before anything else. So makes no sense to put in end range loading unless you're trying to get some sort of functional benefit of very remedial recovery for having a slight adductor injury or a misintegration of something in a bigger pattern. So what we're doing here, third set, first two were mid-range loaded totally. Now we're gonna move it to lengthen loaded full, so third pin on this. So we're gonna have the most load all the way back in the stretch. It's going to progressively drop off more and more until it's the lightest right out in front of us, where you would always fail. From about halfway through the arc to the end is where you're always gonna fail on the adductor. So we're gonna put all the loading back here where we're gonna have strength still after those two hard sets we already did, so we can maximize as much as we can get out of this set without having the normal failure point, which would have been here, in the way at all. Because by the time you get here, it's almost weightless. So this is gonna be the nastiest way to come at this. It's gonna hurt more than doing it the same way on a middle pin setting again, because you're gonna feel doing it this way, and I'm gonna feel this way, Jacoby's gonna feel this way. Taking it all the way through to the end of the set of what you have to give, it's gonna feel like you're done early. But you're gonna have so much more, because as soon as you break through that dip off point, you can just pull it right together. And there's almost nothing worse than that. It's like having partner assisted failures and just keep on going and adding more reps and more reps that you barely feel like you can be able to do. But this adductor here is your partner pulling you through those last reps that you don't think you have. Told you. Tip on setup for these. So the last time I made a video with this, I left a couple pieces out for the sake of time. So one of the most common things that I see people have trouble with is when they're laying into this, they lay down and then their feet point out like that. And then when they curl, it's like this. And then it gets worse and worse. And at the same time, I get a lot of DMs, talk to a lot of people, and a lot of my clients at first go will say, wait, my knees hurt on hamstring curls. Like, well, yeah, think about it for a second. Your knee is a hinge. It moves this way. This weight is moving in a straight line this way on a pivoted arc. And so if your knee is a hinge, this is moving this way, but your knee that moves one way is turned like this. What do you think is gonna happen to your knee? Kind of makes sense? There's an extra shear angle against it where force is getting placed through that knee in a direction it's not able to handle very well. So easy thing to do is as soon as you lay yourself down into this and you have your body weight down into this pad, your hips are gonna want to externally rotate, which is what turns your feet out like this. So, to help with that, you start by already wiggling yourself in. I have to kind of pull my legs around a bit so that my adductors don't stop my legs from getting close enough. And extra internally rotate the legs so my feet are almost turned extra inwards and my knees are closer together than my hips are. Now, when I lay down and I slide back, my hips are gonna naturally want to externally rotate a little bit, so that's just what's gonna happen. But now, because I overcompensated and pulled inwards, my feet aren't pointed like this. They're pointed like this. And now, they should stay there as long as you're conscious of trying to hold your legs together while you're curling, rather than just trying to flip the load up from the bottom position.
In the zone today. I'm trying to see if I might be able to squat 6 plates. Definitely 5.5, but if I'm feeling froggy, I'm gonna let 6 fly.
We've both been eagerly anticipating the squat. So we're just kind of putting in the time on these movements here, anticipating it, because it should be fun. As long as the Smith doesn't break on us.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, I've broken that Smith every time I've squatted on it so far. We've had to get it readjusted. So don't tell the gym that, even though they already kind of know. But. Looks like some weight will be lifted.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
I completely mistimed my music for that whole set. Part of the song I wanted just started. What an idiot!
Go get it real quick. Go ahead. Hop in.
Drop set.
Top set. Take it out of one plate.
So, set up tips and tricks for a horizontal leg press on a pivot like this. You gotta remember that this is on a pivot. You gotta remember also how you brace is dependent on how the load is pressing against you and the direction that the load wants to make your body conform into one mass. So think about it if you're just a crash dummy rag doll in like literally a vehicle crash test. That dummy is just going to fall in any which way it's going to on impact, because the directions and the vectors of the forces that are hitting it are just going to put every piece of that body in the place that those forces decided it to go. Your job when lifting is to take advantage of all of the contact points that you have and all the opportunities that they allow you for you to fight effectively against the load that is trying to move you, and to not fight it so much that it ends up defeating the movement purpose in the first place. You need to follow with the intent that the load is trying to push you into, so you can match into an efficient movement pattern that will move it back to the original starting position, and you're not fighting your general mechanics, but you also need to fight it enough that you're just not collapsing into a ball, okay? I would feel like that's obvious. But something that gets missed with specifically pieces like this and like the hammer or literally any other horizontal leg press is exactly that in principle, which ends up being you're sitting in this, but what do you hold on to brace with? On the hammer, you have handles on the sides here. On this, you just have these, sides of the rig. The amount of times that I see people doing one of these or holding on to the handles of the hammer horizontal and thinking that that's helping them brace is kind of ridiculous to me. And it's a little bit irritating to have to make the point, because it would seem almost self-explanatory, because the load is pushing this way and it's on an arc that wants to push you up. It's trying to move your entire body, if you're a crash dummy, into a ball that's centering right here, is the way that this is trying to push you. If you had no resistance whatsoever, your feet would be up here. Okay? So what does this do? Nothing. It does exactly the same thing that the load is trying to make happen. So you doubling down and trying to make this work isn't helping you whatsoever. It's also only a force vector that is pushing in this direction. Okay? And now, if this is trying to move you up and conform you into a ball up here at your shoulders, what's happening at your hips? Your hips, the actual place where the movement is happening, where you have a connection between the major moving joints that move the furthest distance, the knee and the hip, and then the rest of your central body is at the hip and pelvis. If you don't have anything that is helping to lock you in place so that you can stabilize from top down, where your pelvis is allowed to be from control of the spine, then what's happening? Your pelvis is moving like this. It's getting tucked under you because you have no resistance to it. Where's your bracing? Here. This bracing up here, this line of force that goes in this plane, doesn't stop your pelvis from moving anywhere. And this pendulum is going to force that hip to posteriorly tilt severely if you don't have control over it. And again, what is the biggest complaint on people with leg presses? Oh, my lower back hurts. You wonder why? That's why. And then your setup needs to be accommodated to the fact that the load wants to pull you under. So how do you do that? You set up, I'm gonna move this back a little bit. You set this up so that you already fight against that position that the load's trying to move you into. So you come down into here, set your hip where it needs to be, and I can just do this bilateral for the sake of this. Set your hip where it needs to be, where your feet need to be on the platform, and then actually give a little bit of an extension posture. Pull your shoulders back, tuck them down, use your lats to stabilize your spine. I always give the cue to treat this like you're holding on to a 1 rep max trap bar deadlift, is what it should feel like. You're trying to pull yourself down and in as much as you can and create a slight extension posture so that your pelvis actually anteriorly tilts a little bit. So instead of turning under like a scared dog tucking its tail, you're turning it a little bit back. Not enough that you have an actual anterior tilted posture, but just enough that, like I talked about on the hamstring curl, as soon as the load is acting on you and it's trying to force you into posterior tilt, you already have a hedge against it. And so when you move as a reaction of that load being moved against you, that little adjustment doesn't pull you into an inefficient position by actually posteriorly tilting your pelvis out of place. This adjustment just leads you into neutral. So you have power here and you can move within a small range that isn't going to be a detriment to your efficiency or your strength.
Hey guys, Justin Jacoby, Camp Jansen coach here. As you can see, we're already through the workout. We didn't do an intro today, we just kind of got right into it. I didn't do a whole lot of talking throughout today's workout, just had my music in, was just ready to train. So basically what we did was the same beginning portion of the workout like we have been for legs, always starting with adductors and then a lying hamstring curl. Today on our rotation we were doing Smith squats. So we had heel elevated Smith squats. We hit some new PRs today, both Nick and I are chasing down some all-time PRs, so it was a really good session on those. Came over to the Rogers press. Nick's doing single legs. I always do a set of singles and then going into a little bit heavier set of bilateral. After this, we're gonna do a split stance single leg RDL with dumbbells, and then we're gonna be doing a single leg extension superset with walking lunges. So we still have a little bit left to go. We wanted to get some talking points in really quick right now. As always, if you guys have watched this far, thank you so much for watching. Please like, subscribe to the Camp Jansen channel. We're going to be continuing to put out videos and trying to get them out on a weekly basis. So stay tuned. We have a lot of content that's planned and coming up this year, so it's going to be a big year for both Nick and I as far as YouTube goes, and for the Camp Jansen page with some of the other coaches and the stuff that we have planned coming out. So appreciate you guys watching. Please stay tuned for the rest of the video, and we'll see you guys next week.